Okay, we'll start with this. Tomorrow night's main event.
Highlight fight of the weekend, the fight that has the most potential to end up being an all-out war.
The undisputed featherweight title fight between the two remaining champions at featherweight, Amendia Serrano of Puerto Rico and Erica Cruz of Mexico. That's right, the Puerto Rico versus Mexico rivalry rages on.
Battle of the champions.
Two remaining featherweight champions, battle of the southpaws, as both Erica Cruz and Amendia Serrano, they're both southpaws. Amendia Serrano, who sports a professional record of 43 wins, 2 losses with 1 draw, 30 knockouts, having never been stopped.
Never been knocked out in 46 professional contests.
Amendia Serrano is just 1 fight away, 1 belt away from making history. Although the exact same thing applies to Erica Cruz. Erica, who sports a professional record of 15 wins, 1 loss, no draws, 3 knockouts.
It's safe to say that by and large, Amendia Serrano is the more experienced fighter of the two.
She gets the edge in experience. She gets the edge in power as well. Comparatively, Amendia Serrano is a much bigger, more proven puncher at more weights than Erica Cruz is, by and large. Not saying that Erica Cruz is pillow-fisted.
No, she can punch, it's just that Amanda punches harder.
Harder than Erica Cruz, who last saw action in September of last year opposite the ring former champion of Canada, Jelena Marjanovic, in what was their second fight, their rematch. The second fight went the same way the first one did.
Their initial meeting took place in April of 2021.
Erica Cruz pried away the WBA title from the then reigning WBA champion, racked up a successful title defense opposite the ring. Her countrywoman, Melissa Esquivel, then met Jelena for the second time in September of last year.
And that was Erica's only fight last year, the Jelena Marjanovic rematch.
Amendia Serrano comparatively was a little bit more busy. She had the Katie Taylor fight, the legendary Katie Taylor showdown in April of last year, lost a split decision, rebounded off that loss opposite the ring, then IBF featherweight champion Sarah Mahfoud, and added that belt to her collection. Only 1 remains.
Erica Cruz's belt. Erica Cruz's WBA title. Erica Cruz, the pressure fighter.
Mid-range to inside puncher, inside fighter.
That's her sweet spot.
She's not the kind of fighter that wants to spend all night playing keep away, maintaining distance from her opponent. She looks to close it.
It's one of the more defining characteristics of pressure fighters. Any pressure fighter, Erica included. They want to spend the majority of the fight within striking distance of their opponent.
Stylistic matchup pits the pressure fighter against the boxer puncher, with Erica being the pressure fighter and Amendia Serrano being the boxer puncher.
Boxer punchers got a stylistic advantage over pressure fighters because they don't actually have to go out there and find them.
Pressure fighter, for the most part, is going to make themselves very easy to find.
Because they'll bring the fight to them.
I feel like this fight is going to look a lot like Amendia Serrano's fight with Jamila Guntaruk some years ago.
Jamila Guntaruk, like Erica Cruz, she's a pressure fighter.
Wants to stay with and stay on top of her opponent, play them close to the chest, bang in the booth. That's what pressure fighters do, and that's what I expect Erica Cruz to do, try to do, tomorrow opposite the ring, Amendia Serrano.
Very awkward Erica Cruz, who leads with her head, comes in barreling forward, bending at the waist,
letting go of big hooks, big looping shots, wide ones. Erica Cruz, who hails from Mexico City, Mexico, that's high altitude. Fighters that hail from that region tend to have very good engines.
They don't tire easily.
Fighters that hail from Mexico City. Erica Cruz, like her nephew, Isaac Cruz.
Do you see the similarities? Do you see the resemblance between them?
Both are pressure fighters that deliver their shots, deliver their punches in a very similar fashion. They're always big shots, very big shots with bad intentions on them, but that's a detriment opposite the ring. A good boxer puncher, an experienced one like an Amanda Serrano, because if what you're looking for is a fight,
she'll oblige you.
Boxer punchers are often capable of alternating between offense and defense seamlessly, the way Amanda Serrano does, as opposed to just focusing on offense, like pressure fighters often do. Pressure fighters like Erica Cruz.
So as stated, I believe this fight between Erica and Amanda is going to look a lot like the fight between Jamila and Amanda years ago.
And what did we see in that Serrano versus Guntaruk fight years ago? We saw that in Jamila Guntaruk attempting to close the distance and crowd Amanda Serrano, she left herself wide open for Amanda Serrano's full arsenal of punches, her hooks, her body shots, her uppercuts.
You'll notice that Erica Cruz's punches are pretty wide.
Just like Jamila Guntaruk's punches. Wide sweeping hooks, looping shots, the kind of shots that Amanda Serrano characteristically knows how to roll and counter.
It's what makes her so effective mid-range to inside. She rolls the punches as to take something off of them and fires back punches of her own.
You'll also notice that at that range, Amanda Serrano's hooks are more compact, more tight, more accurate. As a result, they don't have to travel as far to find the target.
Travel as far as Erica Cruz's sweeping hooks and looping punches that may or may not land.
Amanda Serrano's hooks, her uppercuts, her body shots, mid-range to inside, they don't have to travel very far, least of all when the opponent insists on staying in the pocket, which is what pressure fighters look to do.
So if Erica Cruz stays in character and stays that mid-range to inside offensive whirlwind, she's going to be well within striking distance of Amanda and get the full brunt of Amanda's punching power. To offset Amanda's punching power, you don't bring the fight to her, you move lateral.
And that's not Erica Cruz's calling card.
At least it hasn't been.
One thing that's interesting is what are otherwise offensively minded fighters, like Yamileth Mercado, for example, opposite the ring Amanda, they make a decision that they're not going to bring the fight to her. They are instead going to try to survive. So if Erica opts to survive,
move lateral and try to stay on the outside of Amanda, what happens there is Amanda wins wide. Amanda wins on points. Erica stays in character and she wants to stay in the pocket with Amanda. She may get stopped.
Erica's got a great engine, great chin, and she's a volume puncher, but she don't punch as hard punch for punch as Amanda Serrano. I have Amanda Serrano winning tomorrow night's fight.
In either scenario,
I have Amanda Serrano becoming the featherweight division's undisputed champion, the first undisputed champion in the four-belt era! In other news, boxing insider Rick Glacier says he's been told by a very reliable source that it looks bleak for boxing on Showtime with the Paramount Plus strategy. Parent company Paramount Global has yet to make a final decision, but they are looking at all options. One thing's for sure, Stefan Espinoza should be looking for a job.
Further confirmation that things aren't all sunshine and rainbows over there on PBC Island.
One thing that caught my attention is that the Paramount Plus streaming app actually features Bellator fights. Bellator, MMA, UFC's competitor. And I just thought to myself, well, if Paramount Plus is invested in Bellator, surely investing in the PBC wouldn't be such a far cry.
It's all combat sports at the end of the day.
But if the plan is to reallocate resources at Showtime away from anything that accounts for less than 10% of their overall viewership,
PBC might be a sinking ship.
Though even with that, I don't rule out the possibility that the PBC could, at least in theory, get brought over to the Paramount Plus app with some changes, major changes. Up until now, the liaison between Showtime, the platform, and the PBC, the content provider, up until now,
Stefan Espinoza was more or less the liaison who bridged the gap between PBC and Showtime.
If by some chance the PBC's content is brought over to Paramount Plus, that doesn't necessarily mean that Stefan Espinoza will be brought along with it.
He might not.
In situations like this in any industry where a company finds itself trimming the fat, they don't tend to hang on to the leadership that got them there, that got them in that predicament. And for the longest time now, here on this channel, we've been talking about the declining viewership and the overall declining metrics of Showtime's boxing content, whether we're talking about fights that happen on regular Showtime or their box office fights, their pay-per-views.
The metrics haven't been encouraging for a very long time. It's a perfect storm, really.
Americans across the country cutting the cord, moving away from cable packages and focusing on what shows they actually watch. Those shows specifically, that content specifically, the viewing experience for the average American these days is more customized than it's ever been. That's driven eyes away from premium cable networks like Showtime.
The advent of the internet and some internet sites like YouTube. How much time does the average American spend on the internet versus how much time they spend watching television shows?
What you might find is that the average American isn't watching as much television as they used to. Tack on the actual content itself, the boxing content, this being a boxing channel, we have to address that the PBC has developed a nasty reputation for not delivering fights in a timely fashion, essentially attempting to They
tried to isolate themselves from everyone else, and it wasn't to their benefit, it was to their detriment.
A veiled effort to try and monopolize all the talent in the sport, an exercise in futility, really, because boxing is too big for any one promotional outfit to try and run a monopoly.
That's not gonna work.
Though it didn't stop Al Heyman from trying, and where Showtime is now might have something to do with the deal that the PBC struck with Fox approximately 4 years ago. You will notice that some of the PBC's more notoriable fighters were funneled over to Fox.
Guys like Deontay Wilder, Errol Spence Jr., you know, the guys that were buzzing at that time.
They're not buzzing so much now. Approximately 4 years ago, when the PBC entered into that landmark deal with Fox, they funneled some of their more notoriable fighters over to Fox on the premise that it's a bigger platform that would get those fighters more exposure. But that deal, that plan, didn't go to plan.
That relationship between Fox and the PBC didn't turn out to be fruitful, but you'll notice that when they funneled those fighters over there to Fox,
you were essentially dividing the audience's attention between two separate platforms. If you take fighters that have been fighting on Showtime and move them over to Fox, well, that ain't to Showtime's benefit. When Fox eats, Showtime don't shit.
They sure don't.
And that in and of itself drew some eyes, at least in part, drew some eyes away from the Showtime platform.
Remember that after the Dominic Breazeale fight, Deontay Wilder's subsequent 2 fights were on Fox.
Errol Spence Jr., how many of his pay-per-views, how many of his box office fights were on Fox instead of Showtime?
In a nutshell, there is something to be said about the PBC maneuvering those fighters the way that they did, funneling them to another platform off Showtime.
There is something to be said about that and how that might have affected the overall viewership that the PBC was delivering to the Showtime platform. Showtime, who they already had a long-standing relationship with before they even entered into that Fox deal.
Fighters that you used to watch on Showtime, they ended up on Fox. Surely that had an effect on Showtime's metrics for boxing.
Tack on rampant piracy in the sport. Whenever you do bill a fight as a box office fight, it's much easier to watch a fight on an illegal stream these days than it ever was in previous eras of boxing. Rampant piracy is certainly cutting into the buy rate of pay-per-views and the metrics they generate.
The money they generate or the money they don't.
It's a perfect storm, really, how we ended up at this point. And you have to wonder if there was anything the PBC could have done to avert disaster, because they may be on the eve of it.
Is there anything they could have done to avoid this?
Well, I have a few suggestions, though in truth it may be too little too late. This may be karma coming back to bite Al Heyman in the ass.
He double-crossed Oscar De La Hoya in Golden Boy Promotions. Don't forget how he got those fighters in the first place.
The stable of fighters that were there with him upon the PBC's inception, his ill-gotten gains, his ill-gotten stable.
He took those fighters from Oscar. He funneled them from Golden Boy Promotions over to his PBC. That's how he got that started.
Look at how it all turned out. Look where it's gotten him.
The Showtime platform may be leaving boxing, and if they do, Al Heyman's going to have to shop what he has left to some other platform. Shop his PBC around.
And even if Showtime does end up leaving boxing, the PBC could still, in theory, end up on another platform, though it won't be the land of milk and honey it was made out to be years ago.
Not by a long shot.
And finally, in men's cruiserweight news, reigning WBO cruiserweight champion Lawrence Okolie has announced that Sugar Hill Steward is his new head trainer.
He has since parted ways with young Shane McGuigan, who was training him up until this point. It was an amicable split. They didn't have a falling out. They left on good terms.
The only inference I can make is that Lawrence Okolie relocating to Dubai, where he is now based out of, that may have posed some scheduling conflicts for Shane McGuigan. Perhaps he's not as flexible.
Shane Shane has a lot of other fighters, not exclusive to Lawrence Okolie. He has other fighters he has to train, like Daniel Dubois and Carolyn Dubois.
It's been some weeks since Shane McGuigan revealed that Lawrence Okolie wasn't even training with him regularly anymore. Lawrence being based out of Dubai, it's not really a shocker that he decided to part ways with Shane. He's going to be working with Sugar Hill Steward now, who I can only deduce is a bit more flexible under these circumstances. A Kronk version of Lawrence Okolie could prove even more formidable than a Shane McGuigan version of Lawrence Okolie. We saw subtle changes in Lawrence during a short time with Shane.
We never got a finished product.
Sugar Hill Steward is the closest thing you can get these days to famed trainer, the now deceased Emmanuel Steward. So it's a good relationship.
About as good a choice as any. We see the difference that Sugar Hill Steward made in Tyson Fury's corner, the difference from the first Wilder fight until the subsequent two that followed.
Given Lawrence Okolie's physical dimensions, his extremities, those long levers, this is a guy with a big wingspan for a cruiserweight. Overall, Lawrence Okolie is a cruiserweight on the much larger end of the spectrum. Imagine a guy with those dimensions, that tail of the tape, with a Kronk style.
Lawrence is changing things. He's migrated from Matchroom over to Boxer, and now he's going to be trained by Sugar Hill instead of Shane McGuigan. He's given his decorum a complete overhaul.
There's a lot of talk about Lawrence Okolie potentially moving up to heavyweight, though in truth, the real value in bringing Lawrence Okolie over from DAZN over to Sky is the fact that he's a reigning champion, an unbeaten champion.
Matchroom got him to the WBO title, but he didn't have any unification matches.
And I don't see what's stopping him. Neither Queensberry or Matchroom or Top Rank or even Golden Boy for that matter are all that invested in the cruiserweight division. There are 3 other champions out there, and I don't see why Ben Shalom, Boxer, and Lawrence shouldn't be able to get them in the ring. Currently, the WBA champion, Arsene Goulamarian, he very recently snapped back a rather long stint of inactivity.
He successfully defended his WBA title not that long ago.
WBC champion Lunga Makabu, he's set to defend his green belt against former champion Badu Jack. Lawrence should be able to get the winner of that fight in the ring.
This division isn't as political as, say, heavyweight or super middleweight.
Welterweight, junior welterweight, you get the gist of it. Because Boxer's competitors and those competing platforms, they're not invested in the cruiserweight division the same way that Boxer is. They
got Chris Billum-Smith to cross over, now they got Lawrence Okolie to cross over.
You really want to one-up Eddie Hearn and show him how it's done? Get this kid some unification matches. I don't see what's stopping you.
There's a lot of people, they're talking about Lawrence going up to heavyweight, but if he does, the heavyweight division is a lot more political than the cruiserweight division is.
Make some important fights happen at cruiserweight before they decide to make that move. And now that Lawrence is working with Sugar Hill Steward, perhaps he can shell out a more fan-friendly performances.
Yeah, some of Lawrence's fights really haven't been all that entertaining. A lot of wrestling and clinching. It's not appealing to the eye.
Even if it's effective in smothering the other guy's work by tying him up, people don't like to see it very much.
Perhaps with a Kronk-style trainer in his corner, Lawrence can shell out more fan-friendly fights. We'll see.